This is Fort Sill, an historic United States Army post situated in the heart of the great state of Oklahoma. Under the command of Major General Roderick Wetherill, the post offers a peaceful scene today. Excellent training facilities, well-manicured lawns, trim headquarters buildings, modern troop billets, all fitting for the home of the American Redleg, that rare breed of manhood known as the Army Artilleryman. But Fort Sill has not always known the peace that reigns here today. Indeed, the post is steeped in history and rich in Army tradition. Over 100 years ago, Captain Randolph Marcy recommended that an Army post be established at this location to create friendly relations with the Comanche and Kiowa Indian tribes and that celebrated Indian leader, Geronimo. And soon after, General Philip Sheridan personally laid out the ground plan for the new post. Unfortunately, neither Captain Marcy nor General Sheridan, or even Geronimo, could be with us here tonight. Peace with the Indians did not come easily. In fact, in 1871, General William Tecumseh Sherman nearly lost his scalp to a group of Kiowa chiefs during a meeting on the porch of what was then, and continues to be, the commanding general's quarters. It was to be nearly 90 years later before another commanding general was to again be nearly scalped on that front porch. And that was in 1958 when General Tom DeShazo first met with chiefs of the Martin Marietta tribe. Instead of the tomahawk, the weapon was called lacrosse. Colonel Jim Unger and Press Flowers immediately recognized the potential of the lacrosse, and both contributed greatly toward its phenomenal success. That's another story. Things have changed since the days of Geronimo and lacrosse. Geronimo is buried on Fort Sill's East Range, and lacrosse lies buried where it last fell. May both rest in peace. Meanwhile, technology moved forward, and with it came new plateaus and bigger challenges. One of the biggest challenges was to be a new artillery piece, to be provided by the friendly people who brought you lacrosse. In 1957, the Army awarded a contract to Martin Marietta to develop a missile that was to be known as Pershing. Development of this two-stage shoot-and-scoot weapon moved forward rapidly, and in early 1960, the first successful launch took place at Cape Canaveral, Florida. Many Fort Sill dignitaries, looking forward to the day when Pershing would be placed in their inventory, swarmed to Cape Canaveral to witness the historic launch. One of them, believed to be either Howard Von Kennel or Bob Blake, or both, offered 10-to-1 odds. Some contractor personnel were also suspected of having bet heavily on the side of the tube-oriented artillerymen. Finally, the group turned back to witness the missile countdown and launch. And while the tube artillerymen and a few contractors paid their debts to the believers, technology took another step forward. 2 years later, Pershing was to move into the hands of troops. The Secretary of the Army joined with General Lou Griffin, Lieutenant Colonels Pat Powers and Ken McDonald, and Walt Halsey, among others, to honor the 1st Pershing unit, the 2nd Battalion, 44th Artillery. Soon after, upon direction of Colonel Jim Norval, President of the Artillery Board, the 2nd of the 44th moved to Waco Range, where artillerymen fired a Pershing missile for the first time. Before long, other Pershing units were activated, including the 4th of the 41st, the 1st of the 81st, the 3rd of the 84th, and the 2nd of the 79th. 3 of the units went to Europe as part of the 56th Artillery Group. Annually, these troops were returned to the Four Corners area of the southwestern United States for launch exercises, where under the eye of Haney, they ran up an impressive record. One unit, the 3rd of the 84th, also set the record for distance. In September of 1967, the 3rd of the 84th sent a missile down across Utah, through New Mexico, and over Texas, to impact somewhat outside the normal CEP. The result was an immediate proposal from Martin Marietta to General Kreitz that a contract be awarded to study the possibility of extending the range of Pershing. Meanwhile, technology continued to march on, this time the result of Pershing being assigned a dual role. Under what was to be known as Quick Reaction Alert, or the QRA role, Pershing was to assume a strategic mission in addition to its general support role. To meet these challenges, Pershing needed greater mobility and other improvement, including a faster reaction time and a computerized countdown procedure. The new missile program was to be called, with great originality, Pershing 1A. Winning Pershing 1A was not easy. In fact, there was some argument that perhaps the Navy's Polaris or Poseidon could better take over the QRA role. Quickly, the Department of Army, with help from Fort Sill and the contractor, prepared a position paper outlining the distinct advantages of the Army's shoot-and-scoot Pershing over the Navy's submarine-launched Polaris or Poseidon missiles. Here are a few of the key arguments. Pershing versus Poseidon.
Pershing doesn't have to be waterproofed unless it rains. American generals are better than Greek gods.
A Pravda survey shows that 85% of the Russian people prefer to be attacked by Pershing. Pershing begins with a P, followed by an E. Thus, 10 letters ahead of Polaris and Poseidon in the alphabet.
If there never is a nuclear war, Pershing will have done just as good a job as Poseidon.
Pershing has a smaller warhead. If we blow a mission, we haven't lost as much.
Submarines are unpopular. It was a dirty submarine that sank at Lusitania.
You can't put a submarine in a parade.
Shoot and swim won't rhyme like shoot and scoot.
With these convincing arguments, the Joint Chiefs and DOD authorized the go-ahead for Pershing 1A, then turned to other pressing decisions. And soon the P-1A contract was awarded. The most obvious change in Pershing was to be a shift from tracks to wheels. This provided the required mobility and at the same time contributed to easier maintenance and greater reliability. Some innovative stress tests were conducted by the contractor. As the program progressed, the continued testing at Martin Marietta soon led to a complete deterioration of its roadways, with potholes and bumps occurring frequently. Some of the company roads turned to quagmire. It also rained a lot during those early test days. It even snowed some, too. But eventually the weather cleared and the Pershing was ready for its unveiling to DOD, Army, and Fort Sill officials. At the last minute, it was decided that a series of dry runs was necessary to be certain that everything would be ready when the visitors arrived. Time was of the essence. And finally, the visitors arrived and Pershing was demonstrated. Everything worked like it was supposed to, and Pershing 1A was thus accepted and ordered into production.